At this point, we know how bad social media is for us. The studies have come out. Young people who use social media more often in their day are more likely to be anxious and depressed and lonely and have lower self-worth. It's not just young people, though. We all know this. I mean, young people are more susceptible to being influenced by what they see on social media simply because they are young. But people like me, 28 years old, yeah, I'm going to be negatively impacted by social media if I use it all the time. And I feel that way if I use it for too long. I start thinking worse about myself. I see all these people doing these crazy, amazing things and comparing myself to them. And then there's a bunch of news on social media that's usually negative because, well, we're humans and human psychology tends to be focused more on negative stimuli, and therefore that's what gets the most engagement, and whatever gets the most engagement usually gets pushed more than stuff that doesn't get high engagement. Along with how many more things I could list off. So we know social media isn't good for us, but we're all continuing to participate in it. We're all continuing to use it for at least several hours a day. The question is, why? The most obvious thing is because it's addictive. It's designed to keep you coming back. Especially short-form content is like a slot machine. You never know what you're going to get next, but every once in a while you get a video that really emotionally hits you positively. Like every once in a while I know I'm going to get a reel on Instagram Reels that makes me laugh. And that anticipation and not knowing what's going to come next is what keeps me coming back. The second thing is that I think a lot of us just feel like we're going to get left behind if we don't engage with social media. This is where everybody is. This is where people spend most of their time, especially in America when they're not working. So if you're not on social media, it feels like you are going too slowly. You're moving too slowly. There's things constantly happening on social media that are related to pop culture, and most of us feel like we got to know what's going on, or we're going to lose our ability to keep up with the world, which is constantly evolving due to technology, ironically. So the very thing that makes the world evolve faster is the thing we got to continue engaging with if we want to keep up with that pace. Third reason is it's easier to scroll than to sit with ourselves in boredom. In any little crevice of space that you get, which is usually the free time you get in the present day because everything's moving so quickly. And a lot of us have jobs that pretty much take over our entire lives, and we're working even outside of actual working hours, and we're just constantly connected to our computers. It feels like the little free time we do get is not long enough to actually invest in something proper, like a hobby or reading a book. You know, you got to sit down and read for like a good 30 minutes or an hour or whatever. That's pretty difficult. But if you got like 10 minutes to spare, or you're just waiting in line somewhere, right? Like you can just pull out your phone and start scrolling and avoid that boredom. And the fourth thing, I think we're on the fourth thing now, are we? Is that it is like surveillance disguised as connection. So what I mean by this is you can check in on your friends without actually having to check in on them. If you're sending reels to your friends, that's one thing I've talked about with my friends. I like to send reels back and forth with them. And that's kind of my way of keeping up to date with them. Along with being in Discord, I think that's an actual sort of bonding experience that I wouldn't have access to if technology didn't exist in the way it does. But also just like viewing your friends' stories or seeing what they're doing on social media, seeing that they're constantly updating, it's almost your way of like interacting with them and investing time into them, even though it's not really investing time into them. It's just an easy way to feel like you are connecting with the people you're close with, or even people you don't know, without actually having to invest that time to speak with them and develop a relationship with them. And then the fifth thing I can think of is like identity maintenance. You know, social media has become a way for us to create a certain personality, a certain identity we want to project onto the world. So our social media brand, let's say, well, especially for me, because, this is my job. This is how we perceive others now. A big way in which we perceive others is like, what do they look like on social media? And I think deep down, we should know that what people post on social media isn't an accurate representation of their entire personality or humanity or soul. But it's a part of us that I think is really important, or we feel is really important to maintain, because everybody's there. Everybody's on social media. If you're not on social media, it's almost seen as like, well, what are you hiding? Like, what are you doing then? How are you keeping up with things? Who are you? We don't know. So the bottom line is, we hate how social media makes us feel, but we crave what it gives us, which is attention, distraction, and belonging. So the question is, how do we separate ourselves from that more? How do we stay up to date somehow without pulling out our phones or looking at social media all the time? And how do we get the things we are trying to get from social media from healthier alternatives? Well, it's just a matter, I think, of like reconnecting with what we've always done as humans, while incorporating tech into our lives in healthier ways, to really disconnect from the addictive aspect of it. What I like to do is simply recognize what my emotions are trying to tell me in the moment in which I feel triggered to pick up my phone. That is the moment in which you can choose how to respond to how you feel. And most people just instinctively pick up their phone and then start scrolling without even realize what they're doing until it's been 30 minutes and they're like, how has it even been 30 minutes? So in that moment in which you pick up your phone, this is what I want you to do. You can still pick up your phone. That can still happen. But stop right there and ask yourself, what am I really trying to get by interacting with my phone in this moment? Maybe it's an escape from boredom. Maybe it's an escape from a certain emotion you don't want to feel and don't want to recognize. Maybe it's a thought that came up that diminishes your self-worth, and you don't want to feel that thought right now. You don't want to think about that right now. Whatever it is, identify what is triggering you to pick this thing up. And usually it is a form of trying to escape from something. Now, escapism, I've talked about in past videos, it's not completely unhealthy. There are healthy ways to temporarily not exist as the person you are right now, which is through like video games, through reading, transporting yourself into a different character or world for a little while, when this reality is so heavy, so full of suffering. And yes, it is full of a lot of positive things too, but sometimes reality can get really heavy, and every once in a while, escaping from it and using that to relieve yourself and then come back to reality more able to tackle challenging things, that's a healthy way to like escape, let's say. But social media, it doesn't do that. It amplifies the negative aspects of reality. You're not really escaping reality when you go on social media. You're just seeing worse versions of it. So recognize that moment where you feel triggered to go on social media, go on your computer and go on YouTube or something, or scroll on TikTok or Reels, whatever it is, and just sit with that feeling for a second to identify what's going on, and then consciously choose to do something else with that time. Now the answer, the question is, what do you do with that time? I think this is also why we turn to social media, even though we deep down don't like it, is because it's like, what else do we do? What else do you do in your free time if you only have like 20 minutes? Or even if you have a ton of time, what am I supposed to do? Just sit around and do nothing? Like, I need some stimulation. Now, if you have grown up your entire life with high stimulation, of course it's going to feel uncomfortable when you do things that aren't very stimulating, like reading. Like, it's going to be hard to sit down and just read and engage with a book and read the words for more than like 10 minutes. This is a muscle you got to build back up. After you consciously recognize that you're picking up your phone, even when you don't really feel like you want to, and you know nothing good is going to come out of it, you've got to build up the muscle of being patient and aware of your reality again. Because if every silent moment has been filled with a phone, that's a muscle you lost. And so what I suggest you do, like I said, reading. I think reading fiction is incredible. You can read nonfiction too. I'm more of a fiction guy myself. You can take a walk, go for a 10-minute walk, and it's like realize how maybe superficial a lot of your worries were. And then on walks, I get a lot of my creative ideas and I just think about things in a better way. Do something like that to quickly fight off or even just quell the triggering response that gets you to want to scroll on social media. And then it just makes you feel worse in the long run. Now, maybe you are craving a sense of belonging. That is very difficult to find in this current reality for a lot of people, but it absolutely is possible. It just takes more work than scrolling through someone's story and wishing you had the life that they had, or talking with people in the comments. Like, yes, there's some great ways to interact with people online, but a lot of us are just using it as a way to like feel like we belong, maybe through our profiles and through our characters online, because we can't, or it's too hard to seek that in real life. But there's plenty of ways to do this. You know, I've talked about meetup groups on my main channel. Meetup.com has some great opportunities for you to find people with similar interests and go to like groups of doing different things in those meetup groups. And if you go to those enough, you know, you're reinforcing those relationships, and eventually you build some great relationships from that. I've had a video where I went to an improv group, and it was very strange to do improv and it was uncomfortable, but it was a challenge that I'm really happy I did. And if I kept going, I could have seen myself like becoming friends with those people. So there are ways to utilize the online world to get what you want in the real world, including a sense of belonging. I know for some people it's way harder than others. I get that. But I do think with a little more effort than simply just picking up your phone, and once you gain that conscious awareness that you're just picking it up because you feel triggered by something, and you actively choose to do something else, you will want to put in that effort, and it will feel good to put in that effort to make friends that you were actually seeing and talking to in real life. And the third thing you want to think about, you know, social media, it gives you an opportunity to create a certain persona, an identity, but it is very limiting in what you can choose to post. Everybody is judging you at all times on social media. You've got to appear a certain way and act a certain way, or else you're going to be ridiculed or you're going to be laughed at, whatever. So because of that limitation, which does exist in real life too, I think you really got to ask yourself, you know, what's the identity I want to build? And this is at the crux of my greatest teachings I feel like I can give people, is you have the ability to create an identity that performs actions that you actually want to do on a daily basis. It just takes a fuck ton of work. And it's not guaranteed that you get the success that you wish you would through all the hard work you put in. But it's so much better than letting someone else choose most of the decisions you make on a daily basis. These unscripted videos, I'm just yapping. So when you get this time to really reflect on your life and sit with the boredom, then you start asking those types of questions like, what have I been running from? What is the identity I've been running from? What do I actually want? What do I want from this life? What sort of identity would I enjoy being? What character would I enjoy playing as? And this goes back to another previous video on this channel. And really sit and journal and really in detail describe the person you want to be and what that person's life would look like, and align your actions and your behaviors and your thoughts with what you think that person, or how you think that person acts and behaves and thinks. And eventually you forget that you're acting as that person and you become that person. This is why who we hang out with, what we consume on a daily basis, what thoughts we choose to pay attention to, all of these things shape who you become. And exactly who you are in this moment is because of who you chose to hang around with, what you consumed, what people taught you, and what thoughts you chose to pay attention to. Or we could say you didn't choose to pay attention to them. You were just inclined to pay attention to some thoughts over others due to the beliefs you had about yourself that are ingrained within you. And when you really think about these things, that's when you start to live a more intentional life away from social media. And you start realizing that you don't like this. You don't want to be on social media all the time. And in fact, life actually is a lot better when you're not filling all your free time with something you don't even enjoy, that you're just using to escape a triggering response from reality. That's what a lot of us are using social media for. And once more people wake up to that, then people start to move away from these platforms. Then we realize, okay, this is starting to get exhausting. And it is starting to get exhausting. I think we're reaching a bit of a breaking point in our culture where we're just like, bro, like, I'm not even having fun here anymore. The internet used to be fun. Social media used to be fun to just create stuff and just get a good laugh out of it. Now it's gotten, this is like half of our lives. Half of our identity resides on this online space that we don't even have control over. So we've all realized this. Most of us don't like being on social media for a long time. The question just then becomes like, what am I trying to get out of social media? And how can I get that through healthier alternatives, which I just described in this video. I'm writing a novel about a 21-year-old living in a post-pandemic world, this world we're currently living in, who goes through this really tragic loss and develops the ability to see into a parallel reality. If that sounds like a novel you'd be interested in reading in your free time, hopefully it'll come out early next year. And if you want to get updates for when it comes out and the progress I'm making on it, you can join my newsletter, which is linked in the description. Also, if you want to talk about the identity you're trying to create with other people who have grown significantly in their lives away from social media, and you want to get rid of these bad habits, you can join my self-mastery school. We meet in a video call every single weekend to discuss ideas like this. That is the core idea of you are who you surround yourself with. If you surround yourself with these types of people, you're going to become more like these types of people. So if you want to have access to that space, the link is in the description to that as well. And I'm heading out. I need to go get a haircut.